The big story today on just how political parties are funded in India. Well, much of it is not transparent, and there has been this big battle with the Election Commission that has been trying to change things. Today, a well-known think tank, the Association for Democratic Reforms, released its findings on corporate donations to parties. And the findings are an eye-opener. The BJP, for instance, has got the maximum corporate donations, and many of these have been made without a PAN card or address. It also holds true for other parties like the Congress, though the CPI and the CPM are way behind.
A comprehensive report on corporate funding to political parties in India. According to the Association for Democratic Reforms, between 2014-15, the maximum corporate donations to all 5 national political parties came at this time, about 60%. Between 2012 to 2016, 1,933 corporate donations of 384 crore were made to all parties without PAN cards, and 1,546 donations, which brought in 355 crore, were without address details. The most donations without PAN cards and addresses were made to the BJP at over 160 crores. The BJP got the maximum corporate donations at over 700 crore between 2012 and 2016, much ahead of the Congress, which got 198 crore in the same time period. Most of the donations came from the real estate, manufacturing and mining sectors. Satya Electoral Trusts topped the list of donors, a company with links to the Bharti Group, and it made 35 donations to all parties in 3 years.
Crores of money being transferred from electoral trusts or some company to the political parties. पैन कार्ड का नामो निशान नहीं है, एड्रेस का नामो निशान नहीं है. एक लॉ है आपके लिए और मेरे लिए, और दूसरा कानून है political parties के लिए.
When they put out a report, it is a serious document. It needs to be perused. It needs to be absorbed. We feel that a proper briefing on the entire question of political finance reform and campaign finance reform it would be in order.
Our party is the only party which has actually shown interest in bringing transparency in political funding, and we are the one who have demonstrated it for others to follow.
Transparency in political funding and electoral reforms has been a challenge in India. The Election Commission recently wrote to the government objecting to changes in the law which exempt political parties from revealing details of donations received through electoral bonds. These bonds had been announced by the Finance Minister in the last budget. With Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor, Madan Lal and Girish, Tanima Biswas for NDTV.
Well, joining us on the program tonight, we have Dr. X. Qureshi, the former Chief Election Commissioner of India, here in the studio with us. We have from the BJP, Mr. Vikramjit Banerjee, who's also a senior advocate with the Supreme Court of India. Sunil Alag, independent business consultant, joining us tonight. Manish Tiwari, former minister, spokesperson of the Congress. And we will be joined shortly by Professor Jagdeep Chokar of the Association for Democratic Reforms, which has carried out this study today. Dr. Qureshi, let me ask you first. Interesting, these findings. There's been so much talk about how much money goes into political parties. Much of it, we don't really get to know about in the public domain. What did you make of this report and these figures that you heard?
Well, nothing surprising.
From your experience,
of course, it's not a surprise at all, because that is something we have been talking about for years now. Money is the only unsolved problem in Indian election. Money, the muscle power is gone, the gundagardi, dadagiri, both capturing, impersonation, all is history. But money power not only has continued to elude us, but it has actually got aggravated. Despite the fact that in 2010, we created an expenditure monitoring division, we brought in an income tax commissioner, a director general, we came out with new rules and guidelines, and our first election was Bihar, but more important was Tamil Nadu. For a couple of years, we had tremendous success. In fact, I had written a book on Indian election called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election, where I documented 40 ways money is being abused. And now, of course, they must have invented many more. That is the issue. I feel defeated, frankly, that this is one problem which we have not been able to solve. And second thing I would like to mention, that money in the election is the root cause of all corruption in the country of any kind. Because when you spend crores on elections, you have to raise crores, and how do you raise them? That is what comes out from the report.
So, as you say, it is the core problem. It's sad to see you saying that you feel defeated as a former Chief Election Commissioner when you see something like this. And before I open it up to the political parties, Professor Chokar, let me ask you, looking at these figures that the ADR has put out, you can see that there really has been a massive jump in corporate donations to political parties, particularly to the BJP in the 2014 general election. And you've also mentioned in your report, and you can see there that in 2014-15, the BJP alone got 408 crores worth of corporate donations, and the Congress was about, since 2012, the Congress has got about 198 crores in all, from 2012 to 2016. But you've also talked about a large number of donations without PAN cards and addresses. How does that actually happen? Because one would assume that when a company is formed, when a corporate house is registered, it would require a PAN card. So how does that actually happen?
No, it does not mean that the companies who make donations to political parties do not have PAN cards or do not have addresses. The political parties, when they fill up the donation report, they do not bother to write the PAN number and the address. I mean, it is not that the companies do not have these things, they do, and I am sure the political parties know that, but they just don't bother to write it.
Why not?
But that you should ask political parties, how do I know? In spite of a 2013 Supreme Court judgment, which has said that when candidates fill their affidavits for elections, they should not and they cannot leave any column blank. The same logic should apply to donation reports of political parties. When they give these donation reports to the Election Commission should not accept those donation reports. Of course, that means that we will not have the data that we have.
That's an important point. I'll take that back to Mr. Qureshi in just a moment. Let me just get the first political reactions. Vikramjit Banerjee, what did you think of this? I think, perhaps there's nothing wrong with getting corporate donations, but why doesn't the BJP take the lead on this and just say, let's make all the donors' names public? Why should anything be anonymous? Why should anything be secret? Why shouldn't PAN details, for instance, be filled out? Most of the lack of PAN details or addresses actually are linked back to the BJP.
No, I don't know. I haven't gone through the details of the report which Mr. Choker has released. I'm sure it's comprehensive. I don't know the details and the methodology used, but we'll assume for the purposes of this argument that what he's saying is correct. But the fact is, we need a comprehensive reform, and the Prime Minister has spoken at great length about it. The party president has spoken about it. The finance minister has spoken about it. And we need a debate on it, and we need to sort of ensure that there is transparency in political funding. There is no doubt about that. And how to go about it, what are the nitty-gritties to bring forward? I don't think that can be settled in terms of a TV debate at the present moment. It has to be gone through, and a policy has to be formulated. The Prime Minister has indicated a number of times that he's interested in large-scale political funding reforms. And he said that after demonetization, this is going to be one of his biggest things on his agenda.
If he's serious about that, we just had the Election Commission writing to the government in June of 2017. Because the government amended the law to say that they introduced this concept of electoral bonds in order to fund political parties in the budget. And the Election Commission has objected to the fact that these contributions now don't have to be reported, and they've actually said in the letter to the centre that we won't then know if the donations are in violation of any particular sections. It opens up the possibility of shell companies being set up for making donations to parties, and therefore they're asking for greater transparency. If the government wants to be if the BJP wants to be totally transparent on that, then why have this anonymity at all? This was an argument that was made even when the bonds were first introduced. Why the anonymity?
No, I think the step at that point of time was to ensure that there was transparency in funding. So you could buy an electoral bond and there couldn't be unaccounted funding of elections. But if these questions have been raised by the Election Commission, I'm sure the Finance Ministry, which was at the forefront of raising these electoral bonds, would have an answer to that. As a political party, we have our view. We want transparency. The Prime Minister has spoken about it. Our party president has spoken about it. But as to the nitty-gritties of how this is to be worked out, again, that is a matter for the government, and that is a government decision to take.
Well, Manish Tiwari, you know, in some other countries, for instance, in Germany, all donations are required to be made public. They are required. I mean, the German Parliament, if I'm not mistaken, actually gets all the details of all the money that goes into various political parties, and the donors are made public. Why can't we have a similar system like this in India? Why should these donations remain anonymous? I mean, right now, the cash donations have been limited at 2,000 instead of 20,000 rupees, which was the case earlier. But that doesn't mean that the system will not be exploited.
Well, Nidhi, I was at the National Convention of the Association of Democratic Reforms in March or April in Chandigarh. And yes, political finance reform, campaign finance reform, you know, is the 600-pound gorilla in the room. And political funding, you know, takes place at different levels, you know, for panchayat elections, for elections of local bodies, for legislative assembly elections, for parliament elections. And then you have donations which are made to political parties, because unlike some of the Western countries where political parties are really platforms to get people into public office, you know, we have political parties which are more like standing armies. You know, they are a 24/7 reality. And I had suggested at the ADR convention that the easiest thing to do is to link every donation to Aadhaar. So therefore, it is not about cash or about.
I apologize. I think Manish Tiwari's OB has just broken down. We'll just try and get that signal back up. Actually, it was interesting what Manish Tiwari was saying, Sunil Alag. Why not link every donation to Aadhaar? Since everything else is being linked with Aadhaar right now, why not link this as well?
You know, look, transparency is something which all of us are supporting, and there's no question of not having transparency in political donations. But this can only happen. Why does it happen in the West, and why does it happen in Germany and everywhere else that you are saying? It's because there is a certain degree of maturity which the political system has brought in. For instance, if the Republicans are funding the Republicans, if the Democrats come to power, they don't go after the people who have funded the Republicans. Our political system, why are people scared? They are scared that if I back the BJP and if Congress comes to power, they're going to come after me. Alternately, if I back the Congress and if BJP comes to power, this is the perception. I'm not saying that. So, until the political system first shows the maturity, I think for the next 5 years or 6 years or 7 years, this is required, because everyone is scared that is there a situation where you collect money and at the same time you're safe. Now, the political system has to tell us that. It's not the BJP, it's not the Congress, it's all of them together. And that's the question that is required to be debated in Parliament. But if you are expecting only BJP to do it and all the other parties are quiet about it, it will never happen. It has to be Trinamool, it has to be JDU, it has to be RJD, it has to be the Congress. All of them have to get together and say, come on, let's do it. Then it will happen. It's an
interesting point you've made, Sunil.
Come on, give everybody a break in the system, you know.
It's an interesting point that you've made about the way our political system works. Manish Tiwari is back on the line with us. Manish, sorry for the link breaking there. You were making that point about linking the donations to Aadhaar, and that's what I asked Sunil Alag about when we lost your connection. And he says the reason why this is the system that works right now is because in India, the political system is not mature enough. Corporates are scared. They're scared that today, if they've donated to the Congress, then the BJP will act out on them, and vice versa. Your response, Manish?
Well, I usually disagree with Sunil Alag on everything that he says, but here I would like to agree with him. You know, political vendetta is a reality, but that does not mean that you create opaque and non-transparent systems. This bringing the ceiling down from 20,000 to 2,000 rupees only means that you have to cut 5 times more coupons. And this electoral bond is an absolute farce, for the lack of a better word, because you know what will happen is that the government, through the Reserve Bank of India, would know as to which corporate or which person has bought an electoral bond and where that electoral bond has gone, because it would have a number. So therefore, in fact, if the idea was that it would reduce political vendetta, in fact, it gives enormous amount of powers to the incumbent government to unleash political vendetta against all those who have actually bought those bonds, and if those bonds have gone to opposition parties. It is a loaded advantage in favor of the incumbent government, whosoever the government is. And to his point that the BJP cannot do it alone, everybody needs to step up to the plate. I'm sorry, in the Westminster system, it's the government which needs to take the initiative. So if the government is really serious about campaign finance reform and electoral finance reform, let them bring a bill, and that bill can be discussed. And finally, to your point, Nidhi, about, it happens in Germany. Well, we are not the only country which has problems with electoral financing. You had the US Supreme Court, which actually stepped in and revalidated super political action committees, the super PACs. And therefore, you have all kinds of unaccounted money, coming in from all sorts of tax havens, which goes into the American political system also. So therefore, you need to get real and see as to how you can find a solution. And to my mind, the simplest solution is link every donation, whether it is 1 rupee or it is 1 crore or it is 100 crores, to Aadhaar. Let every donation have an address.
Okay.